let me first congratulate all the speakers. I know transformations equal innovations. It's such things not easy. And it's not definitely easy to step here and trying to discuss and present your idea, your experience with, a lot of people. So I want to congratulate you on that. And I pray that basically all the project that everybody is starting or is actually trying to accomplish, can find the fruit, and many of us actually also will try to find the benefit and maybe start a new era of collaboration within, even not only with Estonia but also within the African community. So thank you for all the great presentations. So, as I said, my name is Ibrahima Kalil Kourouma. I was previously the e-government strategy, responsible for the e-government strategy for the Republic of Guinea at that time in the president's cabinet. So it took us, with a lot of struggle, to put in place the e-government strategy. So I was nominated in April 2013, coming from Canada, a little, staying away from some of the reality of Africa, and I was faced with a lot of struggle. But the first mandate, it was actually to put in place an e-government strategy. But with a lot of struggle, like many of you have stated, it took us 8 months with a lot of stakeholders involved to get adopted by the government. Today, I'm on the other side of the implementations of some of the aspects of that e-government strategy. So I decided, actually, with the ask of the commission here, which actually I will thank later at the end, to present one aspect of the project, of the e-government project, that contributed to saving the government about 20% of its expenditure, so which is big. So, and before I continue, it's always a pleasure first to say thank you to the organizations. Many of you have been, invited by ACP or maybe by EGA, but personally, I got my invitation through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister's office. Based on certain collaboration that I have with my friend Yuri and and the Estonian government. So, which I'm actually grateful for, and thank you for that. And I want to use the same opportunity to say sorry. I know a lot of you were expecting my president here, which unfortunately, he's heading actually the AU kind of head of state today. He's not able to make it. We know for sure he was supposed to be here as to open the ceremony next to the Estonian president. So thank you, and I know for sure he will receive basically the warm welcome that we received here. And you can be very sure of that, the organization that he will receive that in a well-known manner. So, Guinea. When I came, a lot of people ask, Guinea, where is Guinea? When I speak to them in English, they said, no, you're not from Africa. Definitely your accent is not like somebody from Guinea, a French-speaking country, because you don't see little French accent. So it's a small country, basically, not as small, of course, as Namibia or Mozambique. And we actually gain our independence in October 2nd, 1958. It's, of course, a French colony, so French is a primary language. And the bordering country, of course, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Mali, Ivory Coast, and Sierra Leone, most of them Portuguese, French, and English. Right? And the position of Guinea is very, very important. It is very, very interesting. Guinea is actually the hub of all those countries. Donc, what makes it so special in terms of innovations, in terms of technology integrations, and that's led us to one other slide that I will take, I will talk to you about when the president actually got elected in 2004, how to take advantage of our geographic positions to innovate. Not only to innovate, but trying to leapfrog in the adoption of technology. So it is today, we are 13.5 million inhabitants with 3 main ethnical groups, which are Pearl, Malinke, and Susu. And its land coverage is 245,000 square kilometers. That 4.5% is arable. Donc today, also, because of that percentage, Guinea is actually a source of a land of opportunity for agricultural investment. Not only technology, but agricultural investment. So, one more important thing. Today, we know in terms of governance, Professor Alpha Condé was elected in 2010, which actually got re-elected again for his second term. Today, we had the pleasure of actually having him as the head of the state of the African Union. And wherever he goes, wherever we go in, as a Guinean, we have to actually basically go with the message that he portrayed all over, the message of unity and see the sweet. Donc, literacy. Today we know in terms of talking about innovations, and my colleagues have mentioned earlier, you cannot innovate without the level of literacy in your country if it's not high enough. So, in the 4 main objectives of the government, which I will give you in the next slide, focus really in providing education for all. Education for all, in order for us to innovate, to put in the hands of the civilian society, technology, in order to be useful to them, in order for the citizen to be closer to the government, they need to be literate. So he put it as a mandate, education for all, in the primary school and go all, So our resources, we produce a lot of bauxite. Today, Guinea is the number 2, is the number 2 reserve of bauxite in the world, which actually make us today as the number 1 destinations for all the mining investors. So there is a possibility of getting financing and reinvesting basically the return into technology, into different sector of development. So we have a GDP today of 2,000 per capita. So, in talking about all these Guinea, one might ask, what is our ICT missions? Because we know the president also, when he got elected, one of the problems that he had, even within his cabinet, he had hard time to actually send emails to his constituent. To his ministers. So communication become an issue. Even trying to find out what's going on in the city, what the citizens are saying about the government. How can we create, an environment of communication between the citizens and the government? So he made a global mission, to transform the government of Guinea in a citizen-centric knowledge society. It can be big, but it is our responsibility and different ministry to take these visions, these missions, and trying to break down into different strategy, into different action plan in order to create project to make sure the citizens become the beneficiary of this project. So, those 4 initiatives, those 4 strategic objectives, of course, national unity, because we face a lot of issues. So technology was actually not our priority, because there is certain issues in the country that we were supposed to take care of, because there is a lot of ethnical war, there is a lot of we were hit by Ebola a couple years ago, so that actually put down, like in good French, a freiner un peu notre développement socio-économique. So in 2 years, Guinea was actually closed to all the corporations and all, work around the world because of that problem. So what we're focusing on now is actually economic development and structural reform. So my nominations to take care of, one aspect of the reform, which is administrative reform. Today, when we talk about administrative reform, we're talking about processes, we're talking about, understanding the culture. If you don't understand the culture, you will not be able to understand the processes in order to eliminate all the waste. So my job, and the job of basically my department, is to make sure we understand all the administrative processes, one of which how, the onboarding process of the government employee. And the agency that I was leading today, I don't know if Mr. Kamara is here. He's leading today this agency. This agency was in charge of the e-government strategy. So I put in the framework, and now they send me to implement specific project in order to save the government a lot of headache, especially, a lot of money. So the agency still had its goal, but we did put in place the 5-year e-government strategy. So as a specificity, that's why we took one specific project that saved the government today 20% of its expenditure, which is actually the government human capital management systems. And as we know, there was a lot of problem. A lot of problem was identified, within the government level, and with a lot of consultation with different government entity. What is the problem? What should we do first before we even move forward? It was understood that even the president has said that there is an advance in technology. So what are we going to do to leapfrog or to at least get some advantage of those new technology? The change in citizen expectation. Today, if you go in Guinea, the level of penetration for technology used has exponentially increased. So the government became really, really behind in use of technology when it comes to citizens. So the government has to take actions to basically to make sure the citizens not become too far ahead. Then they found out that there is actually a limited fund for those kind of initiatives, because they didn't have, any mean or any strategy in finding funding to trying to do this. So, and lack of transparency, of course, the administration was getting older, and slow administrative reform. So, in terms of slow administrative reform, we took, in one aspect of the e-government, focus on the human capital management systems. Talking about the human capital management systems, there was actually 4 main systems that was actually were implicated into the human capital management system. There is actually the actual database for the public administration. There is the database for the Ministry of Budget, Title II, that consists actually on the salary of the government employees, and the finance, and also the biometric database, that where we actually did all the biometric of all the government employee, and other database as well. So what we did, we found out that, as a summary, quickly, we found out that all these databases, there is a major inconsistencies in these databases. So the question was, what do we do? The gentleman here talking about corruption, these systems was a source of corruption in my country. It's very important to mention it, because we all know about it. It's not something to hide, and it was a point of corruption in our country, because a lot of people, as a public employee, I could have 2, 3 different salaries, and the government was spending about 30% of his expenditure budget on paying the employees. So by putting in place these applications, we first had an agreement with different ministries to look at their data, to trying to eliminate all the duplications. The data governance become an issue for us, because there was no politics of data governance. So we had to do that first in order to move on. So finally, when we had it done, we managed to build 9 new systems that use only that one database. So we're talking about X-Road, we're talking about once only principle. We applied in our method, but we put in place I know the time is gone, but I'm the last one, so that's a privilege, being the last one. So, and we manage, to cleanse those data, to develop other applications, which is, the application for the onboarding, like, for the exams and exams, la gestion des actes, practically anybody who actually get hired within the government need to have an act signed, by exactly a contract. So we develop automated that process, so nobody sees it until it's done and signed by the minister. So the only thing that we didn't include into that system yet is the digital signature, but that will come with culture and knowledge transfer. So we have actually the contractual, because you have the permanent employees and also the contractual. So two things that we added recently, those are in red, is actually a BI tool to allow anybody at the high level, the ministers, the president itself, to know how many people in the government today was hired. How many people died today, passed away today, or how many people didn't touch their salary yet. We build that functionality. But at the high level, the president can see it, the government, the ministers can see it. So it's created transparency. On top of that, because the government was spending 30% of its expenditure on paying the salary, that was reduced at 10%. So the transparency got reduced. The government is saving a little bit more money. And also, in order for the Ministry of Reform to validate a list of changes within a certain month, that has to go through a process of approval, which we call la gestion de contrôle financier, and it's an entity separated than the Ministry of Reform that is delegated by the Ministry of Finance. So it's not a different database, it's the same database, but they feed the information through the financial database that give them the information matching with all the employees. So there is no duplications, there's no latency, and they can know how much before the pay happen, how much the government will pay the employee, and how much those employees will cost the government at the end of the month. So it is a specific project, but it took a lot of courage to actually stop, all the corruption behind these things. So the next phase, because we did actually the employees biometric database it put in place. So we are in the phase of actually defining the nomenclature to integrate that information also. So because of the idea of once only principle or the X road, so there is a possibility that there is no need even to integrate that database, but it to maybe to allow that database to have the same nomenclature and connect them and create a single window in order for those databases to communicate based on different requests, based on different needs, because that database can be shared with the security, with anybody who has a need, but with the agreement, of course, in place. And so this is just basically what I explained it. It was a database of government administrative management system, budget and finance, Title II, which is the government expenditure, the directory database for the Government Administrative Act, and other administrative peripheral database, which is a biometric database, the exam, and so on and so forth. So without further notice, this is actually simplified architecture, how it happened. I know some people were very excited about this when they see it. I think since it will be shared. So here, there is all the database that is here, and none of them communicated within each other. So they had different nomenclature. The name here is different than here. The name here is different than here. The name here is different than here, and usually refer to the same person. So what happened, and they formulate your request here, and you know that you have another identity in order, and the financial system. So for them in the financial system is two identities. So two identity referring to the administrative database, they pay you two salaries. 2 salaries. At some instances, 3. So we decided to come out with the different ideas. So everything that I was talking about actually was summarized here. So we actually did lot extraction, and we created what they call a FUR, a fichier unique de référence. Et ce fichier unique de référence en français is basically a centralized database with unique identifier, which will become basically the basis, database for, a countrywide registry, database. So within that platform, you can consult, you can extract, you can run statistics, you can even do, change information based on access control, based on the need and so on and so forth. So, and since the time is gone, and I think I'm going to limit here, and thank you for allowing me extra time. And I know it's not easy because we don't have the opportunity, always to, to come here and present some of the ideas with our fellows. And without due notice, and thank you, moderator, and thank you for listening. So if you have questions, I'm open for questions. And I hope there is questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have questions? At least I have one. You mentioned, for example, this once-only principle. Does every citizen or person have the possibility to see the information which the state has about her or him?
So, you see, like I said, I know it's true, we're here to actually have knowledge about everything. But what is true to Estonia may not be true for Guinea, may not be true for Namibia, may not be true for Mozambique. We don't, in our law, allow the citizen to see all the information. At least for now, it doesn't exist, right? But there is law that protect the citizen information. If your information is misused in the matter that you find out, you have the right to actually, follow a legal procedures, right? Because to me, that's a level of maturity that we're not there yet. You have to be mature, you have to have a data governance that even the single citizens is aware how the data is used, how the data is classified, where the data is, and who can have access to the data at any time. That data governance, in order to talk about the data governance, you will have to create content. So in Africa in general, we are in the stage of not only putting infrastructure, but also in the level of creating content. And that content has to be specific to different needs. That content has to be specific to the country, and that content need to be protected by different laws within different countries, which might be different. So, responding to your questions, it is very specific to the country based on their needs and their exigencies.
Thank you. Your answer was very good also as a conclusion.
Question.
Yes, please,
Yes.
one question. Please help also with the microphone.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Usman Lee from Mali. I'm Director General of National E-Health Agency.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not very agree with you because today all people in Africa use smartphone and put some data on a smartphone. The problem is not you have a role or not. The problem is the citizen is using these tools, and it's very important to make a rule because the citizen use it. In case in a medical area, some people take a picture of Eric's and then by Yahoo or Gmail. It's not secure, but it's due to have expert advice in Europe or in United States. But the database of Yahoo and Gmail is not in the control of medical professionals in Africa, but some people use it. This is the problem. We are ready to have a data system with our data. And the problem is administrative management to have a role in legal issues.
So
thank you very much.
So thank you for the so it is a comment. For me, that's not a question. But you have to understand first, right? In the beginning of my presentation, I said the citizens are ahead in the utilization of technology more than the government. Most of the government has their issues. Most of the government, even in Mali, everybody had that issue. The government is a lot of time behind in the use of technology. The issue is not that. The issue, you're talking about, like medical information on Yahoo, on Gmail. But do you know, cloud, before the word cloud become cloud, Salesforce use it, Yahoo, Hotmail, MSN, so on and so forth. Today, there is a lot of polemic among the African community that I don't want my data to be in the cloud. So the question from me to you is, what data would you not want in the cloud? All depends on the strategy that you within your country and the law that regulate how you want that data to be managed. I did mention it all comes down to a good data management plan, a good politics in data governance. Within that data governance plan, you will define what information that need to move when, where, and who has to have access to what information. Because in other countries, if you go to Canada or the US, they will never allow you to send medical record into Yahoo or Hotmail because there is a law for that, right? So we can do the same thing, but we have to define what data, who has access, who doesn't have access, where it goes, where it shouldn't go. It's all depend, voila, on the way that we want to do things, right?
Okay,
Voila.
I'm very glad to
Good.
see that the discussion is still hot in spite of long working day.
Yeah.
But let's conclude now, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.